Entry month May. Some say the unknown should stay the unknown, while others seek the unknown and either find or get lost and get devoured. Which is why I decide to write these logs, to document every little thing that I encounter or see. It begins in the month of May. May is such a joyous month. The flowers are sprouting, the skies are some cloudy but not much, and the landscapes are blooming with bright shiny green. And in such a way is a good day to move to a new home. I packed all of my things in a cargo truck and headed outwards to a lovely house just beside a little town called Franwood. It's a small little town with little stores, little homes, and little streets, but they have a very huge national park. That's what they're well known for, a small town living in a big forest beside them. A perfect place for me to live in. I rolled into town and people were walking, shopping, or just cutting some grass. I kept on driving to go to my new home. We left the town and head to the woods, which is where my home is at. The driver said, "You must be brave buying a house up here." I said, "Why would you say that?" The driver said, "I've heard some untold stories about these here woods." I said, "Like what?" The driver said, "Monsters. Things that you just can't explain. Things that you see in your nightmares coming to life. Things that frighten your bones. Your bones to the very core of your body. That's why no one wants to buy any of these here homes in the woods. Every person that lived here has seen or hears something and moved out immediately." We eventually arrived at my new home. It looked torn up, paintless, and broken at some parts of the house. But I knew I had to do some work. I walked up and unlocked the door. The house inside was very dusty and worn down. Cracks on the walls and ceiling, dust bunnies, leaves from outside, paint peeled, and so much more. I had the guy help me move my stuff into the living room. It took nearly all day to move everything in. The driver said, "I bet I'll be back here in about a week to pack all this up in my truck again." I said, "We'll see." The driver then drove away and I was left alone. Then the sun was about to set and I went inside to prepare supper to eat. I then cleaned a little in the living room to set up an air mattress and sleep till morning. The sun rose and I went back to work on the house. I cleaned the kitchen, the bathrooms, rooms, and more on the living room till it was clean and safe for me to use. Luckily, the homeowner told me the water is clean to use and the electricity has no issues. I finished the day by cooking some store-packed ramen noodles. Just when I was finished, I heard the bell rung at the door. I walked towards the door to look at the peephole, and all I could see is two eyes, visible but seen through a dark atmosphere. I stood back a bit and looked again. The eyes went back to reveal a black-looking creature that's very tall, wearing a nice suit, but torn here and there. His eyes are very teal, aqua-looking colors. The creature also had a large mouth and long fingers on its hands. What startled me the most was that it can speak. The creature said in a low, echoey voice, "Hello? Who lives here?" I then opened the little door to the door and said, "I live here. Who are you?" The creature bends over to peek in the door and said, "My name is Edward. I'm your neighbor." I stood there as the creature continues, "I've heard some rumors from the forest that someone is going to live here, and they are true." Edward gave me a strange look and said, "That's odd. Usually you humans either faint, scream, hide, or run away towards the village. But why are you not doing any of those things?" I then tell Edward, "Well, it's very rude to do those things right in front of a guest." Edward's eyes widen when I said that and say, My, would it be okay if I come in?" I then closed the little door and opened the big door to let him in. He crouched through the door and slowly stood up in the house. Edward has to be around 7 or 8 feet tall, almost the exact height as a basketball player. Edward looked around and saw the boxes in the living room. Edward said, "You haven't unpacked?" I said, "No, sadly. All day I was cleaning the house, but the house is so big. I've been doing so much work, and I haven't been to the attic to get to clean. It will take me a while to clean. I did what I can, and I do some more tomorrow. Would you like something to drink?" Edward looked around some more at my unclean house and said, "No, thank you. But thanks anyway. You know, maybe I can help you clean this house and repair the things that are falling apart. All I ask is a little favor in the end, though, if that's okay." I was a little hesitant at first, and a bit scared at that favor bit, though. So I told him, "What is that favor?" Edward turned to look at me and said, "Ever since I was little, I broken a rule in the forest. By mistake, it was to never go near the village. But little me didn't know any better, and I did it anyway. I went to the village at night, where I would not be seen. The village was empty and silent as I venture onwards. I looked at all these clothes and trinkets by the big window, but one caught my eyes in astonishment. The window had strange shapes on top of each other, covered in strange-looking flowers and leaves, and some of those shapes either had a sponge filling or fruit inside. I walked up to the glass to look at it more, and I smell something that makes my mouth water. I suddenly was interrupted by a loud noise and scurried off back to the woods. I never went back to that place or the village since. He then puts his hands together like he's praying and said, "Can you perhaps get me one? Just one of those strange things?" I was thinking of what he told me. Strange shapes, sponge, and smells good. Then it hit me. on what he wanted from the village. I told Edward, "All right, if you help me, I'll help you get those strange shapes from the village." Edward walked over to shake my hand and said, "Thank you. I'll come back the next night." Ever since that night, Edward has helped me around the house that would have taken me a whole year. During the day, I would clean and get supplies, and at night, Edward would come by to help me with the rest of the house. Edward has done so much, like sealing the cracks, scraping and replying the paint inside and outside, dusting and cleaning both attic and basement, leveling the house, putting new fences, and making a flower bed in the front yard. We were both busy throughout the entire month of May. On the last day of cleaning, we decorated the house with the stuff in the boxes. It was a lot of work to unpack, but we did it. The house looked wonderful from inside and out. Edward left before the sunrise, and it was the last day of May. On that day, I went into town, and I got the items that Edward wanted for a long time. When the sun finally set, I prepared the kitchen table and waited for Edward to arrive. It was 10 o'clock when I heard the bell ring. I walked over to the door, and Edward was there at the front door. He also was holding a bag in one of his hands. Edward said, "Hello, what a lovely night it is tonight. Sorry if I was late. I wanted to give you something. I've seen humans do this when someone is new here in the neighborhood." He hands the bag to me, and I open the bag. Inside was a stone wrapped around a string to make it like a necklace. The stone in the center has a hole in it to see through. Edward said, "That is a seeing stone. Seeing stones help you see things that you can't see. Some items are hard to find, or creatures stay visible to hide from humans. But with this, you can see all of that. Just look through and you'll see everything. Don't ever lose this, or don't stop wearing it. This will really help you in the long run." I looked at Edward and I said, "Thank you. I really appreciate the gift." I put it on as Edward walked through the house and sniffed the air. Edward said, "What is that wonderful smell?" I said, "Well, I was trying to figure out what you mean by all those descriptions you gave me when you went to the village. Then I realized, what's the description? You were looking at a bakery, looking at sweets. So I went to the bakery and not only got a cake for you, since you helped me so much on this house, one was not enough. So I got cakes with different flavors, cookies, pies, cupcakes, beignets, donuts, and some brownies." We walked over to the kitchen and saw the entire table covered in sweets and goodies galore. Edward smiled in delight and said, "Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for this generous gift. Thank you." I said, "And take as much as you want. You deserve it." We sat at the table and began eating all the goodies on the table. Edward was so happy to be eating something that he dreamt up ever since. Once, when we were done, he helped clean up and pack some goodies for the road. He said if it was okay if he stopped by every now and then, and I said I wouldn't mind. Edward then left, and I then got ready for bed in my cozy room in my cozy new home. I'm so glad that I've met someone like him. Met someone like Edward, because not only that I have a good neighbor, but also a good friend. End of May log.